Hello, this is David and welcome to the Top 10 Worst JRPG Dungeons PlayStation Edition. I was a teenager in high school when the PlayStation came out, and when I saw that Square left Nintendo and went to Sony, so did I. This was a classic era of games with gems such as Grandia, Lunar, and Wild Arms. However, looking back on a lot of the classics, not everything was designed as well as it could be. Sadistic puzzles that couldn't be done on the SNES were peppered into some classic JRPGs. Gone were the simpler times of 2D games, now we'd have to deal with these dungeons in 3D. So come and join me for a walk down Nightmare Lane. Number 10, Alundra, Navas Keep. First, let me give you an overview of this awful place. There are 12 main rooms and an exit room, and once you enter you can't accomplish anything until you reach the exit room and actually activate the puzzle. Upon doing so, you have to go back through all the previous 12 rooms and light the lamps that have appeared. Normally this wouldn't be so bad, but all the rooms have 3 exits to them, so they continually run into each other and loop around. You can be sure that you'll probably end up missing 1 or 2 lamps and then have to wander around again looking for which lamps you missed, then pray that you'll stumble back upon the exit room. Most of the lamps are pretty easy to light up, but others have mini puzzles of their own, like diagonal jumping with awful mechanics, or a swimming puzzle where you have to throw a barrel at the lamp. Even with a map, it's very easy to get lost. I swear, dungeons like these were just made to sell strategy guides. Number 9, Final Fantasy VIII Galbadia D District Prison. Like all good JRPGs, your party's locked up in prison and you're tasked with having to escape. But to make matters worse, there's an anti-magic barrier up, and of course all your weapons and armor have been confiscated. So Zell is pretty much forced to do all the heavy lifting here. All the floors are the same, and you have to traverse each floor in their entirety in order to escape, because God forbid military students be able to hop over a waist-high gate. Yeah, there are a couple of small optional things that you can do in each of the cells, but nothing mind-blowing. You can play cards and stuff. Maybe if you were actually rewarded with something useful for your exploration, it wouldn't be so bad. All that's pretty awful in and of itself, but at the end, when you finally escape, there's a scene with a pretty awkward perspective, and you have to maneuver Squall to the right, towards the huge drill, in order to be successful, with no prompting by the game. It's difficult to even see Squall in the cutscene, let alone know what to do with him, and if you don't do it correctly, it's game over for you. Number 8, Breath of Fire 3, Desert of Death. Okay, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but here it goes. I don't really like Breath of Fire 3. I found the plot to be a bit too long-winded, and there to be too much filler. Certain sections just dragged on and on while nothing much really seemed to happen. And nothing encapsulates that feeling that I have about the game more than this desert. It's a slow, long, 5-day slog through an offensively boring desert. To make matters worse, the directions that you're given to traverse it are wrong. If you meander about for too long, your party pretty much passes out from thirst and you have to start all over again. To find the exit, you're basically told to alternate going north and east depending on the positions of the stars in the sky, but then he writes you a note to remind you how to get through the godforsaken place, and he records the directions incorrectly. I can't tell you how much frustration this place gave me the first time around, and it's so close to the end of the game, but man, did it make me just want to throw it out the window and never look back. Number 7, Persona 2 Innocent Sin, The Air Raid Shelter. This is a dungeon intentionally designed to make you wander through it, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Each time talking to all the NPCs along the way and fighting the monsters inside. After going through here 3 times thinking that you're hopelessly lost, these annoying-ass NPCs finally tell you how to leave. You need a mirror that they conveniently had the entire time. Why do you need a mirror to leave an air raid shelter? It's a mystery to me. You know, they design dungeons like this and then they wonder why JRPGs and the Persona series specifically had a hard time taking off in the West. Nobody wants to do this. No one wants to have to constantly run back and forth 3 times just to leave a dungeon. It's inexcusable. Number 6, Final Fantasy Tactics, Daughter Trade City. Yes, there are harder battles out there, chain battles even. Rivane's castle comes to mind, but none comes so hard, so fast and so early in the game as this one. This is like 1 hour into the game, for God's sakes. You're probably still trudging along with chemists and squires, and maybe if you're lucky you have a knight or a mage or two. Keep in mind that this was really the first tactical RPG that I ever played. I was 15 when I got this game, and Westerners had never really gotten tactical RPGs before this, so it was a learning experience for the first time around. Anyway, back to this battle. You start off at a massive height disadvantage with an archer of death atop an extremely tall building who's going to snipe off your characters one by one. It'll take several turns to move your units to a place to retaliate, but in order to do so you have to go through a choke point, guarded by a knight where black mages and archers will just rain down destruction upon your entire party. It's so early in the game at this point that you have so few options and skills at your disposal, all you can really do is grind for both levels and job points for hours. It's a wake-up call for the player to take the game seriously. This isn't your normal easy Final Fantasy game. Number 5, Xenogears, Keyslip Sewers. This was the dungeon that ruined sewers for me forever. Before Xenogears, I can't really think of many horrible sewer dungeons, but after this monstrosity, I fear and loathe them with the passion of 1,000 suns. Let's see what awful mechanics this place checks off. Long, narrow corridors with a ton of dead ends? Check. Damage from terrain? Check. No music whatsoever except for the drip, drip, drip of water? Check. This place is just the pits, and the monsters in here are even worse. One of the most common enemies will reduce you down to 1 HP with 1 hit, and there are mobs that confuse you and just a generally high encounter rate. To make matters worse, you have to find a murderous boss stalking you the entire time, and you can't just find the exit to the sewer. You have to find 3 murder scenes and then go all the way back to some random pipe that doesn't have a murder scene to summon the stupid boss, who then proceeds to use instant death moves on your party. Please, kill me. Put me out of my misery. Number 4, Wild Arms 2, Trapezohedron. This is a teleport dungeon of the worst kind. Everything looks exactly the same, so after you take a teleporter, you really have no clue where you are or where you've been to. The only way to keep your bearings straight is to use your compass constantly. To add to the fun, the random encounters inside can inflict instant death. As you wander aimlessly through this hellhole, different paths will appear, taunting you, making you wonder, is this the new path, the way to go? More than likely, no, it isn't. It's just the game's way of trying to screw you over even more. If you make one single solitary mistake in here by going through the wrong teleporter or taking the wrong path, you essentially get to start the whole place over again. Also, this is one of those dungeons that you can fall off the edge of, further confusing you and leading to more mistakes. Then, in a total bastard move, you have to drop off a thinly veiled ledge to continue on the right path. This is one of the most annoying, convoluted, migraine-inducing dungeons to ever grace an RPG. Number 3, Beyond the Beyond, Gaia Shrine. God, where do I start with this one? The Sand Cave, the Ice Cave, the Abyss. Pick your poison! I have a love-hate relationship with this game because I love the old-school Dragon Quest-y gameplay, but I hate pretty much every single dungeon in the entire game. But I've got to say the worst of the bunch is the Gaia Shrine. This place is a maze, and the monsters are much tougher than usual, many having attack magic that can hit your entire party. Also, your vision is reduced to a ring of about 4 squares from you. Didn't we move past this after the first Dragon Warrior? And there are tiles that reduce your entire party's MP and holes that drop you back down to the previous floor. Then, on the 3rd floor, the real fun begins, when Moai statues follow right behind you, and because of them, you can't turn around. So if you mess up, the path forces you into a drop pit. There are 7 floors of this insanity before you reach the boss room. By then, you're so drained it's not even funny. There's a reason why it's considered one of the hardest RPGs ever made. Number 2, Dragon Warrior 7, Dharma Temple Sequence. I guess what pisses me off so much about this dungeon is that it's a total bait and switch. For the uninitiated, Dragon Warrior 7 is a long game, quite possibly the longest JRPG ever made, and by the time that you get to Dharma Temple, you've probably spent about 20 to 25 hours with your basic characters. But Dharma will change all that, you see. You can class change when you finally reach it. Only, you can't. You're dropped into a horrible town ruled by demons with an anti-magic barrier surrounding the place. Then you have to go through long, drawn-out storyline, only to then infiltrate the temple and fight the monsters that have taken it over. The game teases you with something awesome and then dumps you into one of the worst segments of the game. To make matters worse, once you're finally out of there and have your job classes, you have to fight an insanely difficult boss battle almost immediately afterwards, where in order to win, you pretty much have to grind the jobs that you just got for hours. It's like a shit sandwich, a great job system sandwiched between an awful storyline section and a horrible boss fight. Number 1, Xenogears, Tower of Babel. Yes, Xenogears has the dubious honor of appearing twice on this list. Whereas the sewers had no redeeming qualities, at least the Tower of Babel had good design going for it. I mean, it's kind of cool that the tower is actually a crashed upside-down spaceship. It was just executed terribly with the jumping, awkward camera angles, and worst of all, random encounters while setting up for a jump. There really should be a rule. Any dungeon that you have to solve some sort of puzzle, especially one that involves intricate jumps, should not have random encounters. This is made exponentially worse because if you miss a jump, it's not like you just try again. 90% of the time, you literally fall to the bottom of the tower, many times having to start the entire climb over again from scratch. There's just so much open area. I mean, being a spaceship, there really aren't that many platforms except where it would have made sense to put a wall. Also, there are times when you have to swing around on scrap metal in lieu of a platform, and the bane of my existence, there are moving platforms. All this is compounded by how dark it is in there, making it very difficult to see the aforementioned platforms. There are times that I want to replay this exceptional game, but then I think about having to go through this dungeon, and it just kills it for me. That's why this is number 1. It pretty much single-handedly ruins this great game for me. Well, that's it for the top 10, but I do want to throw out a couple honorable mentions too. Chrono Cross, Gaia's Navel, and Legend of Dragoon, Valley of Corrupted Gravity. Hope that you guys enjoyed this, and what are your worst dungeons in the PlayStation era? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.